It's kind of crazy to be up here right now. It's really encouraging to see all you guys in here. I'm really grateful just for the teen ministry and just the service so far. If you guys could go ahead and turn to 1 Samuel 18. My name's Amory Sommaripa, and I get the privilege to teach and preach with my best friend Travis Hamann tonight. We get the opportunity, we're going to be speaking about spiritual friendships and the importance and our gratitude really for all you guys. But to start off, if you guys turn over to 1 Samuel, I want to give a little bit of background, and I'm going to go ahead and get set up real quick. Put this here. All right, I got the clicker. That's hopefully going to work. There we go. Okay, so in the Bible there's many lessons on spiritual friendship. And Travis and Scott and I have been able to recently study out the friendship of David and Jonathan. And for those of you who don't know, I want to give a little bit of background. Jonathan and David did not know each other until this chapter 18 that we're going to be reading out of. But in chapter 14 of 1 Samuel, it reads in 14, verse 7, we get to see a little bit of a glimpse of what Jonathan's relationships were like prior to his friendship with David. And we know that Jonathan was a deep friend. He had great relationship, specifically with his armor bearer. Jonathan, he had the opportunity, or really took initiative, and what he did was he and his armor bearer went out without any reinforcements. Nobody knew what they were doing. They went out and they went to go fight by themselves, just the two of them. But to give a little bit of perspective, in verse 7, this is the armor bearer speaking to Jonathan, and we just see the depth of their friendship even before we meet Jonathan and David. It says in verse 7, "Do all that you have in mind," his armor bearer said. "Go ahead, I am with you, heart and soul." And that's going to be one of our points later on. Is just going with each other, heart and soul. But for what I want to do for you guys is I just want to set up really what spiritual relationships look like. I feel like the stereotypes of our relationships can often be that they're based on popularity, based on your accolades, based on the reputation, and often it's based on selfishness and what you can get out of a relationship. One really cool thing is, again, giving more background in 1 Samuel 17, we revisit one of the most popular, one of the most victorious stories in the Bible, and that's the story of David and Goliath. And we see that David is able to be used by God. And I imagine David is a kind of scrawny guy, not very big, and we know Goliath to be about 9 feet tall, a giant. And God is able to use David in a powerful way, and he's able to slay this giant. And we know that he overcomes this fear. The entire village is running away, and David goes into the battle. And so when we first meet David and Jonathan, this would be a pretty intimidating scene if I were to walk up to it. David is not only just defeated Goliath. Oh, whoops. That's too soon. But David has, but Jonathan has just had the victory with his armor bearer as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and skip a couple slides. And this is our first principle, is our spiritual relationships. And there's a picture right here of our Jonathan and his armor bearer in 1 Samuel 14. And then David slaying Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. And so in chapter 17, verse 57, it reads, "As soon as David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with David still holding the Philistine's head." So when we first meet David and Jonathan, the first time they meet, David's holding Goliath's head in his hand. I can imagine this would be a pretty intimidating scene. You're Jonathan, you're like, oh yeah, I just had this great victory with my armor bearer, and this guy has the head of the man that I ran away from. And so, kind of to go a little bit back, I want to introduce, this is Travis. We're going to get to do our lesson together. But we're really encouraged. Our friendship has definitely grown, and we're really grateful for the kingdom. I didn't know Travis at this age, but because of the kingdom and because of our parents staying faithful, we were able to meet at a young age. And this is his baby picture. We use this for our senior basketball pictures. And then this is him now. Has grown up quite a bit. And then this is myself. This is, both of our pictures are right before a basketball game. But as you can see, we've grown, and it's pretty cool to be up here today. But as I go on in our spiritual relationships, I want to read in 1 Samuel 18. Where am I? And it's 1 through 4. It said, after David had finished talking... Oh, wait, actually I have this up here. Yeah, there we go. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. And what I really get out of this is just in the very beginning is we learn that Saul becomes jealous. And Saul's the king at the time. Saul is the father of Jonathan. And Saul actually brings David in because he recognizes the great relationship that David and his son have together. But really what I want to focus on is in verse 3. And this is where we can really take this and apply it for ourselves, is the two of them, they made a covenant with each other. And a covenant could be described as an oath, as an unbreakable promise, as something that will never be broken between the two of them. And as we go on, we see also that King Saul was the one who was the ruler at the time. But David was called by God. And what is really important about this is that I see is that their relationship is started and based on the humility of Jonathan. Jonathan acknowledges and submits to God in a way that he takes off the symbols and he takes off what is symbolic of him eventually becoming the leader, and he gives it over to David as not only an act of submission to David and realizing that God had called him, but as an act of submission towards God and acknowledging that God had chosen someone else. Even when the plan was for him and it was all lined up for him to become king, God had chosen David. And so we have some more pictures up here. And where are we? And really, the reason why I believe that David and Jonathan were able to become such close friends is because of the scripture in Acts 4:32. Let's read off here. It says, all the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. And so what I'm really grateful for is just even my relationship with Travis, even though it started off at a young age, we were able to have this foundation. And that was really because our parents had established it for us, and they had stayed faithful and brought us together. And we were really indebted and really grateful for the kingdom and to our parents as well. And I really want to talk about a small story. And Travis and I actually, it was really cool to hear the second song we sang today. And there's a line in there. It says, if God is for us, then who can be against us? And I remember when Travis and I were going into our freshman year of high school, we had our arms around each other. We might have even shed a few tears. And we were really excited but fearful to go into high school. And neither of us were disciples at the time. But that week in the summer, we had heard a lesson and a story about some friends who had gone out to go cliff diving. And these two friends went out, and one of them was really, really nervous, and one was more the leader and brought his friend along. And I feel like it's really cool because this role has interchanged multiple times in our relationship. But when they went out, one of the friends was too afraid to jump. So the other friend had to be the one to take initiative and had to take the leap of faith. So eventually the one friend jumped, and the encouragement that the other friend received standing up there from seeing that his friend was okay, he ended up jumping as well, and they had a great time the rest of the day. And so this is really applicable because this is Travis taking a leap of faith right here. On November 13th of 2011, he took the leap of faith and became a disciple as a young freshman, which was really cool. And I was the friend on the ledge. I was the friend that was afraid to jump into the water. I was the one who was not ready to give up, but was still observing every move and every action that he was taking. And through his encouragement and him becoming a disciple, he was actually able to study the Bible with me. And that leads us to our next picture. And this is my baptism. And Travis was there. We actually got baptized in the same hot tub in 2 different seasons. But because of his friendship and because of his desire and devotion to God, he was able to really portray what a spiritual relationship was to me. And eventually, I chose to take the plunge as well. But one thing that's really cool is that we were able to build on our friendships because of this. I know that Travis and I have made covenants to each other multiple times. We've recommitted and had to do it over and over again. But one of the cool things is this is a picture of our of a group of guys that were really committed to each other. And this is at one of our later teen camps after becoming disciples. And some of our best friends are there today. And not to say that this has been without struggle. It's been challenge. But what these guys here represent is something more than just a popularity club, something that goes beyond reputation or accolades or things we can receive out of the friendship, but rather something that helps point us towards God. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you Trav. He's going to share about finding strength in God.
I'm gonna get set up too over here. Alright, I think Amory did an excellent job so far. That was awesome. And I think that I need the clicker. I got some pictures too. But I think that David and Jonathan's friendship is just something that just really inspires me. And I think, we all have friends or people that we see in our day-to-day life that are more like acquaintances, or they're just kind of passed by. But we probably have a select few people that we really are devoted to and really connect with on a deep level. So this one is called Spiritual Friendships. Finding faith in God. Wait, did I skip too far? Oh, okay. So this is me and Amory in the previous teen camp when this was going into senior year, and we this teen camp was really awesome because it was about giving the last round to God, and he used kind of a parable of boxing. I know the Pacquiao fight was last night, and I know we got some Pacquiao fans. And so, speaking of friendship, I was a Mayweather fan, so I hope our friendship is great. And it was like talking about how senior year is supposed to be our 12th round, and we need to go in there fighting and swinging. And so that's kind of that. And funny story, Amory, that teen camp, he told me that he was going to Mexico to build a house. And I was like, well, I want to do it too. And it was kind of a spontaneous thing. I was 17 at the time, so I had to check with the parental units about that. But we ended up going to Mexico with no passports and pretty much a driver's license and $100. And but full of faith and fired up and ready to go. And so we got to build a house for a family that was in need, and it was awesome to see the impact that we had in their life. This is Proverbs 18:24, and I think we all have friendships, but the Bible describes this friendship. It says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And I think we all have that one friend that we connect with on a completely different level, someone that can draw us out and really, they know everything about you. They know who you are, who you were, who you want to be, and they know everything about you, and you know everything about them. And someone who you can share your hopes, your dreams, and aspirations, and visions for the future with. They're there for you thick and thin in heart and soul. And 1 Samuel 23, verse 15 through 18, that's where we're going to pick up. And this is, thick and thin, heart and soul, being there for your friends no matter what. And so we'll pick up in verse 15. It says, while David was at Horesh in the desert of Ziph, he learned that Saul had come out to take his life. And Saul's son Jonathan went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. Do not be afraid, he said. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you. Even my father knows this. The two of them made a covenant before the Lord. Then Jonathan went home, and David remained at Horesh. And I think that's kind of a lot to take in at one time. And so I think the first thing that I noticed is that Jonathan helped David find strength in God in a time of need, when David was struggling. And I think my senior year so far, up to about, I want to say, February, was kind of rough, and I kind of lost sight of the mission and the goal, and I was caught up in things that I wanted. I wanted relationships in the world. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to go to parties. I wanted to fit in. And I think that there's a lot of people in my life that help me find strength in God and help bring me back to God. And some of those people are, number one, my mom and dad. And I think I really want to thank you guys. You guys have been patient with me, and you kind of let me go through a time of struggle, and you were always there for me, but you also gave me space to kind of grow and make sure that it was my convictions. And another person is Scott Sweeney. He's sitting over here. And I remember he used to come to my house at like 7 in the morning, and I wouldn't really want him to be there. I would see him coming, he would park, and my bed was by my window, so I'd be able to look out and see, and I'd wake up right as he'd pull up to my house. And he would come, and he lives about 15 minutes away, and so he would come, and then he'd read a scripture, and then we'd pray, and then he'd go back home. It was like a short thing because I was kind of lazy and didn't want to get up earlier, but he made things happen with what I gave him, and so I'm really grateful for you kind of sticking in there with me when I was being stubborn. And another person is Amory. I think I remember when it was about mid-February when I was wanting to come back to God and wanting to kind of renew my friendship with him and other people. I was really insecure because I know I've kind of abandoned all spiritual relations with people for about 6 months, and I was really insecure about what people would think about me and what they would say. And I think Amory helped ensure me that it doesn't matter what I do, people are always going to be there for me. And I think Amory was also there for me in basketball. I remember he's an awesome water polo goalie, and we played basketball freshman year, and then he kind of went and played not volleyball. I mean, he could do that too, but he went and he played water polo, and then our senior year I was kind of struggling, and I feel like he really wanted to be there for me and also win a DVL championship, but it was awesome. I feel like he was really there for me, and he adjusted his schedule to be there for me. And the last person I want to talk about is Rick Mickelson. I remember my sophomore year when Amory was kind of struggling, he told me if I ever needed anything, if I was ever struggling, or if I ever got into a situation where I would need help, he said he would be there to pick me up and take me home and to love me. And I think that's just awesome. And I think that's the type of relationship that David had with Jonathan, is someone that's willing to adjust their schedule and willing to change their life to just help somebody. And I think some ways we can help people find strength in God is, number one, through prayer. We can pray with each other relentlessly and find strength in God, and just pray all the time whenever you can. And another one is finding comfort in each other, whether it's physically being there or also praying and just being with them and reading the Bible with them. And I think Jonathan was ultimately there for David, thick and thin in heart and soul, no matter where he was. When David was doing awesome, Jonathan might have been struggling. And when Jonathan was doing awesome, David was struggling. And I think they kind of switched roles, but the friendship stayed the same. And so I want to ask, what are our friendships like? Do we have friendships like this? Friendships that call each other higher and not just tell each other what they want to hear because it's easy and because people will like us if we do it. And I think that we need to really strive to have friendships like David and Jonathan, people that call each other higher, even if it hurts and even if they don't really want to hear it. And my second point is 1 Samuel 23, verse 17. It's right there. But Jonathan was extremely selfless in this kind of conversation. He says, what is it? Do not be afraid, he said. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will become king over Israel, and I will be second to you. And I think just even thinking about I will be second to you, that's crazy, because Jonathan was supposed to be king. He was rightfully the heir to the throne, and yet I feel like he trusted God. He trusted God with his plans for the future, and he trusted God with the love and faith. And Jonathan's selflessness is for display in his relationship with David. And it really shows when he says, I will be second to you. And he trusted God with his future. And he lowered himself for David. He lowered himself for David's sake, so David could feel comforted. And I think that I want to be that type of person to somebody that's willing to lower myself and willing to make changes in my life just to help somebody out, even if it's not convenient, even if it hurts a little bit, to be able to do that for somebody and to be willing to do that to somebody. And the last one is 1 Samuel 23, verse 18, and it's talking about when they made the covenant with each other, and the two of them made a covenant again. They made one in the previous chapter to each other, and I think Amory and our friendship has been kind of up and down in the past. Kind of like David and Jonathan. When I was doing well, he would be a little bit struggling, and when I was struggling, he was doing well, and he was wanting to be there for me. And I think, like he said, like we've kind of doing this lesson, some things have came up, and we've had to reconcile and just really connect again. But I think that I remember Rick Meckerson sharing about him and his college friends. And him and his college friends, they've been friends since college. He said that one of his friends reached out to him, and now they're still friends, and other friends joined in, and they have a camping trip, I think, every summer. And they meet together and they renew the covenant that they make to each other. And they say, like, if anything happens to you, I'll take care of your family. If anything happens to your family, I'll take care of you. And I think that is, I just admire that a lot, because I want to be able to say that to somebody faithfully and just really want to be there for them, heart and soul. So, thank you.
I think in a lot of ways Trav has done that. He's pretty graceful with the way that he describes my sophomore year. Sophomore year was not very glorious for those of you who know. Sophomore year was a year devoted to me. My sophomore year was a year devoted to selfishness, to pride, to reputation, to the desire to receive accolades, to better myself in any way possible at the expense of anyone. And it was all about Amory. I had my best friends with me, and I pushed them to the side. Sophomore year is a year that I don't really like to think about, but it really helps me to be humble before God, because I know who I become without Him. There was many circumstances where I knew people were praying for me, where I knew people were really devoted and were staying faithful to God even when I wasn't. I think, like Trav mentioned with his parents, my parents, both of our parents, actually my parents ended up helping his parents because I put them through the same thing. And I know both of our moms would stay up late at night. They would cry out to God. They would write us letters. And sometimes I completely disregarded it. But as my heart softened and as I gained my relationship back with my dad and my sister and my mom, I really came to appreciate all the prayers, not only of my family, but of those in the crowd as well. And I feel like even this week, I know that Trav described the lesson that we learned this summer about our 12th round. So we got 12 years of school, and we're in 12th grade right now, and we wanted to come in ready to fight, and we did not want to go down. We wanted to go all out at the very end. And unfortunately, Satan got a foothold in the 10th round when I was in 10th grade, and then in this 12th round as well, we didn't go in with the full force that we were expecting to. And there was some disappointment, and there was hurt, and there was a lot of sin, not only from Travis, but from me as well. And I feel like, to use the boxing analogy further, we almost got knocked out. We got hit and we're not expecting it. It was like a blindside. And what I really want to focus on is just these covenants that they had. You got the remote, Trav? And these covenants that they made, it's funny when we read this, we're like, well, if you made one covenant, why do you have to make another one? If you made the first one, it should have lasted, right? And when Travis and I were in that summer going into 9th grade, we made a covenant with each other. All right, we're going to be this for one another. And unfortunately, that wasn't the covenant that was lasting. It was a covenant, that didn't last. But it was a renewal and a desire to continue and to move on. And I know even in comparison with my relationships at school and in the world and aside from the kingdom, I've lost a lot of friendships due to conflict. But in the kingdom, we have a great opportunity to pursue friendships that are going to help us to be pointed towards God. And I feel like, and that's the only reason why Travis and I are still friends. If we didn't have God in common, we would have nothing in common, whether we were on the basketball team or not. I just thought of this right now. My sophomore year, Travis and I actually physically got into a fight. But only because of God are we able to reconcile that and not even really think about it. I don't even think about that when I see Travis anymore. I think about the friendship and I think about the gratitude that I have for him. And Travis shared about Rick, and I wanted to share about Trav as well, and just really their devotion to me, their loyalty. I am extremely grateful, extremely indebted to both of them for their loyalty, for their faithfulness, for being faithful when I wasn't. And I know that many others in the room, I know even with Danny sat me down multiple times and he knew I didn't want to be there. But he continued to pray and continued to have faith despite my lack of it. And I am really grateful for being able to grow up in the kingdom. I think this is a picture of Trav and I this year in one of the victories we had. This is our basketball team. And I want to mention, I felt like this year I felt defeated. This was the 12th round and I was getting choked out. And in this picture, it's really neat. In the middle is my coach, Calvin Thorne. He's sitting here today. He lives in Oregon. But he's here today. He's here with his wife, Shanna, and his son, Riley. I got to meet his other kids earlier in the year. But what's so cool about this story is that God was able to use me despite my lack of faith. My faith was at the point where I was starting to give up on my relationship with Travis. I was like, I don't even know why I'm playing basketball anymore. I should be in the pool right now. I should be just like getting out of here. But God used me. And this is a testament to him because God was able to use David, but he was able to use me too. And I feel so encouraged, I feel so humbled because I get to have an opportunity to have a friendship with my coach. In the world, we don't have friendships with adults. I wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't be having any friendships or relationships with people older than me. But because of God, we're able to be united. And just like in that Acts passage, we can be united because we have Christ in common. And so what I really want you guys to leave with is in 1 Samuel chapter 20. And this is just our protection and gratitude for one another. It says, after the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times, with his face to the ground. They kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for we have a sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever." Then David left and Jonathan went back to the town. This friendship was based on God. This friendship was only due and only stayed together because of the covenant they made with one another, but really the relationships they had with God. And what I want you guys to leave with is really the conviction that you're going to pursue spiritual relationships. This is the one way, the only way that I believe it is able to continue to stay focused on God. Without others helping direct us, we're going to stray. And I've strayed many times, and like I was saying, I'm really grateful. Just even in this passage, how it says, it talks about they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. They had this emotional connection. And often guys are not wanting to be known for crying in any shape or form or whatever. But these two had a friendship that was based on Christ, and were able to have this emotional connection that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. And so, as we see one last time, and I want to point this out, is just the third covenant. These guys had to continually renew their covenant to one another. And like Trav shared, even this week we had a bump, and this week we had to reconcile. But really the important thing is that because of Christ, we're able to recommit to one another and recommit to Christ. And I'm really, really grateful just for the opportunity to be up here. I think we have one more picture. And this is just kind of the result of the way that God's able to work. And last year we had 7 disciples at our school, and 4 of them moved away. And so it was just myself, Travis, and my sister. But God really worked and answered a prayer that we completely forgot about, that God would double our number. And the Sweeneys moved in, and Chloe was a disciple. And then Drake and Madison both got baptized in September. And then Megan got baptized as well. And now we're back to 7. And Travis and I are going to leave the team ministry. But what's really neat about it is God is going to continue to grow and continue to really help us to have relationships like this. And I just want to go ahead and close out in a prayer. And thank you guys for the opportunity to share today. Father God, we thank you for this day, God. We come to you humbled. I know that for me to stand up here, so many sins that I've committed and so many different things that I've done run through my mind, God, but I know that you're bigger than that. God, I do thank you so much for our service. God, for the opportunity to be in the team ministry, God, to be in the kingdom. This is a family of believers, and we are so grateful to be a part of it. God, I pray not to take our relationships for granted. God, that we would continually grow in gratitude. God, I thank you that you can use all of us in any way. I pray for the rest of our day. I pray that we would really focus on the relationships that you give us. In your son's name, amen.